checking your social media, how are you supposed to know that? And you could be arrested. So.
Apparently they were notifying people when they were arriving at customs. They were telling them that you were issued with like a court something. And
a court order, yeah, like the public health order that Bonnie Henry's made. But that was happening, but the social isolation when you're coming home from abroad is 2 weeks, right? So for some people that was happening right in the middle of their social isolation, which wasn't the rule when they started. So it's, yeah. So is anyone concerned about overreach?
Yeah.
Yes.
After all of this, what are your concerns?
Is everything that Bonnie says a rule? Or is it only like, does she have to do a certain thing to make a thing that she says a rule, or is it like?
She can just be in her house alone and be like, I order this.
Yeah.
It's kind of unclear because
Like,
we don't
if she
usually-
says, hey son, pass the salt, is he like governmentally enforced to pass the salt now, or?
No, it has to be a public order. So she's usually
Okay.
like, this is when on her press conference week, this is a public order.
Okay.
She'll discuss it with her ministers beforehand, but she'll go, and they'll already have it all in the works by the time she actually announces a public order, and then it'll be put in writing as soon as possible.
Okay.
So
Can you
no.
see the hand raised here? Can you see the hand raised?
We can hear you talking.
Cool.
You're very
Yeah, but
loud.
I don't want to just interject all the time. Like you can raise your hand. Look at the screen. Watch. Lower hand. Raise hand. Do you see it?
You're not
No.
on right now.
Oh, Curtis, I see. Yeah, okay, so,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, I can see. I'm gonna watch the screen.
Oh, I
So
see.
do the hand raise, and
Lowered.
I'll say,
Raised.
He's right there.
Yeah, Kate.
Yes.
Lowered. Raised. So that people don't have to just go blah blah blah.
Excellent, thank
Yeah.
you.
okay, so Curtis
Curtis,
has a
have-
question.
What, Curtis?
I don't. I was just saying.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. But actually, I do actually have something now that you say something. Yeah, it just pisses me off that because I was actually talking to my friend like, oh, what? I can't go for a walk with you. Like, he said no, and he's like, well, how do I stay informed? He's like, well, Bonnie Henry's on TV. Like, I'm not gonna watch TV. Like, is there a list where I can look? He's like, yeah, here, look at the Center for Disease Control, and it didn't have it. He said exactly what you were saying. There's vague terms that don't really define what they're asking, and it's really fucking frustrating because
Yeah.
I think people are on different pages.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's what's weird about it, is that even if you do watch Trudeau's speech every day, or even that's not often, you have to sit through 25, 30 minutes, and then all the panel discussions afterwards. I really wish they just had a website, and you refreshed it in the morning, and they had, this is what happened. And this is what the rules, hard and fast rules
Yeah, I
are.
mean, CDC
Yeah, here's
and other
3 bullet
resources are
points.
doing that.
Bang.
Yeah,
Done.
yeah.
You can Google also BC public health emergency orders, and you can see the PDF versions of all of her orders. But that's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
and
Would
sometimes if the
love,
government
if
wants
you
these
could
to be
come up with a
known and
link
followed, they should be
that,
making it
that'd
as
be
easy as
sweet.
possible.
Yeah, we'll put the link.
That'd be dope.
Yeah,
Link to what?
to what you just said.
No, there's no link. You just Google it and the PDFs come out.
Oh,
See, there's no one place where all these PDFs are saved as far as I can tell. So, yeah.
Hey, Glenda, the raise your hand button, if you can only see the video, just tap your screen, and then the bottom menu thing should pop up, and on the far right, there's a 3 button more. Hit the more, and you can raise your hand.
Okay, I'll keep trying to find it.
Glenda, did you have a comment or question?
No.
You're trying to
I do, but I really want to find this hand raising thing. Glenda, I had to click on participants at the bottom for it to show up. Okay, because I see participants. Okay, click that, and then at the
Here
bottom.
it is. It's in raised hands. Wait, I just raised it?
Okay.
yeah, there you go. You can talk. You have to talk.
Okay, perfect. I start teaching by Zoom tomorrow, so I need to learn all of these features. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it might be different for different devices.
Yeah, computer, it was under participants. Thanks, Sharon.
No problem. I'm trying to figure it out because I have to do the same thing with 8-year-olds tomorrow.
That's me, bro. I hope nurses and health and teachers get a raise after this,
Mhm.
but we'll see.
Oh, in dream, but it's unlikely.
Yeah, that would be lovely.
I think after parents realize how much little shits their kids are, it might happen. We'll see.
Or at least have, might give us wine at the end of the year, which would be great.
Yes.
So I wanted to go back to, Riley, back to the FLQ crisis that you were mentioning right at the beginning.
Yeah.
There were two were killed. One was Pierre Laporte and the other one was James Cross. And they found one in the trunk. And what the FLQ were doing was going around and putting bombs in mailboxes. So they used the emergency measures to tell everybody to stick aside curfews. And it was because they had to go through the mailboxes to make sure that they wouldn't get blown up.
I mean, how many people actually died from the FLQ? Because we had the IRA, right? Like, and it sounds like a very similar situation. And when you actually look at it, like how much of a threat it genuinely was to public life was minimal. It was very, very small. In comparison to the amount of power that the government suddenly had because they now had this scapegoat.
I mean, the
Or, like,
FLQ was even less of a thing than the IRA.
Yeah,
Way less of a thing.
Yeah, they actually killed like groups of people.
No, the
And
The
why was
IRA
it?
did,
Why was it the federal government, not the provincial government?
I think Sam probably pretty effectively answered that question, is that federal ministers were being killed. So,
Yeah, but
I think
the
also,
provincial government could still deal with it. Like,
yeah, I know.
why is the federal government like a fucking gang that protects its own members? Like, that's not how this
I mean,
works.
okay, so this was under an old act that was more broad than the current
Mhm.
act. So under the old act, like now it's meant to work only if the provinces fail. The Wartime Measures Act, which is what the FLQ was under at that time, was way worse. So maybe that's why, because like the provinces didn't have the same structures that they have now, and the federal government needed to use the act because the provinces didn't have the same powers as they do now. I'm not quite sure.
Okay.
But
So Gunda, you had another comment. What was your comment?
oh, I don't remember.
Oh.
But there were only 2 people that died, and the threat was far minimal, or minimal, or more or less.
yeah,
we know what you're trying to say.
But I believe that was it Trudeau, his father, who was prime minister during the FLQ crisis.
yes, he was minister during the FLQ crisis.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, the Trudeaus.
Yeah.
Poor guys.
Yeah, such a bummer for the Trudeau family. Jesus. I could just catch a break every once in a while. And Sophie got coronavirus. That's rough. Yeah. So on addressing some of the concerns that we have with like these overreaches, so typically, under the Act's reviews, each provincial act is different. And under the federal act, a review has to be carried out. So the government appoints like an independent body, like an ombudsperson basically, who reviews the measures taken under the act at the time. Within a year of the act, of the measures being suspended, they have to search, and they can take as long as they want to kind of like look into whether these measures were reasonable. And then within a year of decision, they have to present a report to the House of Commons on whether or not the measures taken were reasonable and not overreaching. And I mean, we do still have a democracy, right? So, I mean, you wouldn't have even noticed the last 3 times BC declared a state of emergency because you're not an opioid user and your house wasn't burned down in a fire.
Mm-hmm.
But that allowed them, because there were people who wanted to evacuate their homes and their communities under evacuation orders, so they had to do that so that they could physically order people to get out of their house because people were going to put out the fires with hoses. So obviously they were going to be in trouble, and then public officials would have to put their lives at risk, or they would have to get firefighters to do so to save them. So they did emergency measures so they could order people by threat of arrest out of their homes. So this is just different because we notice it more, because it actually is affecting the majority of people's ability to live and work. So So yeah, hopefully the measures taken will be reasonable. And if they're not, yeah, the report will be given to the House of Commons, and especially as we have now a minority government, the government, federal government at least, would be very in jeopardy of losing votes over this presentation. And same with these, like every 15 days, every 90 days, you have to like restart the state of emergency. The federal government has a minority, so they might lose if the rest of the House sees no real reason to continue. So people's fears that it'll just continue and continue after this is over are, especially in a minority government or where the BC government is right now, which is almost a minority, one seat away from being a minority, they're at huge risk. Even if people get too fed up with these measures, and they're so needed, and people are too fed up, the electorate, the members of House, yeah, they have a issue with their ability to keep passing emergency measures week after week after week, basically. So there are some safeguards, and for people's view, like, you know, people are worried that we're gonna end up like China or other authoritarian governments. Do you think at the end of this we'll end up as an authoritarian government because of the War Measures Act? Anyone have fears that we'll be the new China?
Probably not.
Probably not. Why?
Doesn't seem very likely.
Doesn't seem very likely.
We don't have as much
Yeah.
money as China.
No, and it's just not in our
Canadian
nature.
politics aren't very
Like-
intense.
What if we just had one dude, though, who wanted that, one prime minister?
charismatic leader
Yeah, got
who
it.
wanted that. Like I said, there's
Is there a pathway for it?
Well, couldn't his party could still vote against him though?
yeah, and I mean, majority governments are rarer and rarer these days. So you need basically a majority government or the majority of the House in your favor, which is not going to happen right now, in order to continue this. So, but it's a hard line to draw when you want the government to have enough power to actually be effective in the controlling of this virus or other public health emergencies that we have, but you also want them not to be able to overreach, and you also want them not to become a dictatorship after this is over. So sometimes they draw that line really well, and other times not so well. So we'll see.
I mean, I think that the idea that Canada could turn into a dictatorship is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But like, if we do look at 9/11 as an example, like you had a nationwide crisis, the States and the UK and Canada, and this looming threat of terrorism because it killed thousands of people on, the two World Trade Centers. And then after that, the government's response was an overreach, and they've maintained that. It is over, it's what, 20 years later almost? And you still have your rights violated at the airport in a way that you couldn't have that would not have happened in the 90s. They couldn't search you. They couldn't do that. They couldn't look through your cell phones, but they can do that kind of shit now.
And that seems foreign to me that you could never do that, because of course they can do that. You're getting on a plane, it's like
They never used to be able to like pat you down and stuff.
I mean, but technology has changed, so shouldn't our
Yeah.
measures against protecting it against it have to change as well to an extent.
But like,
I
it
think the point was
doesn't do a
making
good
is was
job.
going to be like a swinging sweep.
Yeah.
What we maybe need to be looking out for more, if you want to be stringent about this, is the little things that they step into, and often the governments don't take it all the way back. They're not like go bursting into people's homes, but there's little things. I know. I think that like my understanding of the government was that it is an actor that always needs to be kept in control. That can help us,
Yeah.
but the role of the electorate and the people is to check the government at every time.
If anything, I think government's going to grow after this. So the most recent, biggest times that emergency war measures have been enacted federally was under the World Wars. And after those things happened, government expanded hugely. They were providing all of a sudden social services weren't a thing before then. A lot of public stuff that we have now wasn't a thing at that time. And so I think people are going to get used to this public money that we're getting right now, and we're going to see a lot more benefits that are going to stick around after this, because no one wants to take away the benefits. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing I was reading about, is at the end of the Second World War, a lot of the Civil War in America, for example, was mostly started over trying to keep the states unified. And then Lincoln realized that he needed black soldiers. And so African American soldiers said, we'll fight for you if you'll recognize our right to freedom.
Mhm.
And so he did. And you saw that after the Second World War, women's rights and workers' rights as well, is that when someone becomes an essential service, they have a lot more leverage. And they can now say, actually, if you need me to stock shelves, I want $2 more an hour.
Yeah.
Or if you want me to go into work, I need to be paid accordingly. So it actually sometimes gives workers more rights and more leverage than some of them have when they're in
Yeah.
a crisis.
Hopefully, maybe, we'll see.
Now, you guys have any questions? You've been kind of quiet. Hey, Cheryl, you have a question.
I have a question. When they go to renew the state of emergency, is it voted on, or does one person just kind of go, oh, hey, we're gonna keep doing this?
It's voted on.
Okay.
But they're figuring out like proxy voting and stuff like that. They're thinking of they're thinking of because it's hard because the legislature obviously is right now also transferably distant. So I think they're just trying to come up with more unique ways
Gotcha. Okay.
to restart
Thank you.
this. I know that the federal government definitely has to vote on their act. I'm pretty sure the DC government also does. I have to restart it but they're like reducing the number it needs to pass, but they're doing something different this time around due to the fact that we don't want people in close proximity.
Do you guys think that these measures are justified at the moment? The state of emergency and the measures, the orders they're implicating.
I think so, but I mean, how about everyone else?
Great, okay, yeah.
Right, Sam, what do you think?
Sam? Oh, he's muted.
I'm here now.
Oh, sorry.
I think it's justified. I haven't really given it that much of serious thought. We're in trying to find uncharted waters, and the state needs a certain level of authority to keep us safe and keep things trucking along. And at this point, I don't really feel like my or too many people's personal liberties have been encroached on. So for now, I think it's justified.
What if you need a permit to go get groceries? And you can only do it once a week?
Well, I think that going and getting groceries once a week is a good idea, something that I'm assuming most of us are trying to already practice. And a permit to do so, like, I don't necessarily have a problem with that.
What about a curfew?
Well, depending on what the consequences are and the times are, like it's all subjective, right? But I don't necessarily have a problem with curfew either. I think that it's better that everybody's on the same page and everybody is dealing with the same kind of restrictions, and it's clear as to what they are, as opposed to what we were talking about earlier, where there's confusion and disarray and mixed messages. So
That's a good point.
I have a question about curfews.
Because his hand raised, we have to see Jack first because he's being a polite boy.
It's me.
Oh, sorry.
sorry.
Oh, yes.
I think that the state of emergency, I think that they're holding off on that because of kind of it's gonna really create a lot of panic amongst people more so, I think.
Yeah.
And there has been a lot of coordination amongst the provinces. We aren't in the same situation as the states. So they're literally states are stealing equipment from one another. In Canada, we have this plan that we're gonna have things move around to where they need to be. And so I think that if that is something that's able to be maintained with working with premiers and provinces, then this state of emergency federally could potentially be avoided. So that's just kind of, I don't know, I don't know if it is hard or not, though. I really I don't even know what I think about
Well, that's what they're saying is that stay the fuck home and we won't have to do a curfew. So, every day that Bonnie Henry sees more people at the fucking beach, she gets closer to shutting down the beach and putting soldiers on the beach to preventing you from walking on the beach.
How would a curfew even help? Does
Less people out in the
coronavirus spread
streets.
more after 9 p.m.?
No,
But
but
recreation does
That's
that.
people,
Yeah.
recreation does.
Who was saying?
That's just exactly what I thought. Declan's all that, look outside, all those people outside. Oh yeah, there's 0 of them. Make sure you're in bed or in your house. because you're already in your house.
Wouldn't
But
it?
also, you're less likely to be able to you're more likely to be able to physically distance at night because there are less people out and about. So you're better
Yes.
off going for nighttime walks than for a walk at like 1 p.m. when I almost walked
Exactly.
for 12 different kids.
Okay, well, maybe
Exactly.
they'll do a curfew from noon till 3. They could totally do that too.
I think
Yeah,
so.
Exactly.
Unless you're less likely to need to be outside after like 9 p.m. at night. I get that you might want to go on a walk, but unless you're a nurse or a doctor whose shift starts at 10, then you can't go to the grocery stores, they're all closed, right? It's in some ways it's less of an infringement on your rights because you're less likely to go out in the evening. So if you're going to curfew something, then would it make more sense to curfew nighttime?
Maybe it isn't effective. Anyways,
Yeah.
curfews may or may not happen, but
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, that's a good point that you make, Kylie, in that like curfew doesn't necessarily mean be back by 11 p.m. you little shit. It's like, no, it's an agreed upon time that, it's not just late times.
yeah,
So
the
good
government
point.
could decide it's
Yeah, that's a
more
good
foot
idea.
traffic is from noon till 3. So they're
They should do 5 till 9 p.m.
Five till
People
9.
outside. Everyone's
Yeah.
going to the beach.
Or what about, for example, Israel and some other countries are talking about using cell phone data to track your movements to determine who is and who is not social distancing. I don't think the government's going to do that anytime soon, but if they would, how would you feel about that?
Bad.
Pretty shitty. Have you ever tried to geocache with your GPS on your phone? Super inaccurate.
Anyone got any thoughts about cell phone data privacy violations?
I think that I'd be uncomfortable with that one because, like, how do you know it's being turned off?
Yeah,
Yeah, that
it's
one's-
just
that
not
one's
gonna be
bad.
turned off.
It's never gonna be turned off. So they're already there.
I think
They already it is there to an extent, but the government isn't tracking your movements religiously right now through your cell phone. I don't know if they are at all. I honestly don't really care. But
You
at
can
night,
leave your cell phone at home.
yeah, my mom can't even leave her cell phone at home, and she's like 58. So try asking a 20-year-old who already can't fucking stay away from the fucking beach with their friends to not use their cell phone. Don't even. It won't work.
the state's got them.
Yeah, the state's got them there with their addiction to technologies.
I saw this thing on CNN today where they showed all the cell phone pings, I guess, for the Miami Beach, the spring break
Yeah.
people, and then how all those phones and where they went across the U.S. and into Canada. So they did, maybe not individuals, but they were definitely already doing that tracking.
Oh yeah, to an extent.
Yeah. China took it up to a next level. They did a lot of it in controlling their population. But what do you expect from China?
Well, Jennifer, that wasn't necessarily the government. That could have been a private company releasing information.
Yeah, it was general too. It wasn't
I mean, they
specific.
can also probably force TELUS to release your information to
Yeah.
them right now. I don't know.
Mhm.
So
I know, like, because Google has a thing where you can go and look just with aggregated data. You can go and see how, on average, a given area is doing at social distancing, because Google is tracking everyone on the planet.
Right,
Um,
anonymously though.
yeah.
But overall, yeah, you're right, big picture.
I don't know how anonymous it really is. This particular site is a very anonymous because it just tells you like this, this space is doing X well at social distance.
move after this. Like people called the cops on them. They have interviews with residents saying, I can't believe how selfish they are. We should run them out of town. That teen, that like 20-something-year-old, I'm sure we've all seen his video with the guy with the sideways cap, who was like, they're not gonna stop us from partying. That guy has apologized because he's being publicly shamed.
Yeah.
Or the guy who hoarded hand sanitizer and shame people. But I think we still need some government
I don't really
orders
want
here. But
witch hunts to.
no, exactly.
enforce
I would rather have
Well,
the government do that.
I think that's a really big reason why we need black and white like regulations. Like put it out there, bullet form. Don't make it jargony.
Definition of social distancing.
Yes.
I don't know if they already have. I wasn't able to find it. They just keep saying like, oh, social distancing means staying 2 meters apart for essential, leaving your house, and otherwise don't leave your house.
But does the outside count? Like,
Yeah, I don't
how
know
many
what that
people am I allowed
means.
to see? Like, are we talking
Yeah.
like no people or under 3 people?
Yeah.
Or under 10 people. I mean, technically, it looks like by law, you can still have less than 10 people, but who's doing that right
Yeah.
now? Like, who's even having one person?
I was under the impression that was a big like no-go.
If they're keeping 6 feet apart from each other,
Well, they're even saying that that's not social distancing. So they're saying that
But how
like,
do you know
Yeah.
that?
well, if you see.
Like on the sites, it doesn't say anything specific. Like,
If you go to that
look so hard.
VC CDC, website, there's lots of info in there.
That's what I'm
It's just too
looking
big.
in right now.
Vague though, and we,
yeah, it's big. And like, I don't know, but saying that 6 feet apart is for essential leaving the house, like grocery shopping, getting your medication. They're now saying that it's not going for a walk with your friend 6 feet. Because there's still
I
some,
hadn't heard
there's
that.
still some risk at 6 feet, apparently, so.
Okay.
that's exactly my point, is a discrepancy. Like you guys both are standing in different spots. That should not be the case.
Yeah.
We should all be on the same page.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah,
don't know if
put it
that's true, that there's, that's just what I've been hearing is that now, public, I mean, they don't have an order against it, but, you know, they're clarifying, okay, well, social distancing is not, you know, having your friend over in your house or like, you know, going for a walk, staying very far apart. I don't really know.
Yeah. So it's really confusing.
Is Adrian Day saying that, the Minister of Health, or is it Dr. Bonnie Henry, the person who makes these orders, or is it Dr. Teresa Tam, which is the federal doctor? Like, I don't know. Does what she says apply to us? Is it just recommendations?
And this is a lawyer.
I don't know. Like,
I appreciate your sentiment because I don't feel like a lot of people are feeling that way.
yeah,
They're just voicing what they have heard as fact.
I've heard this. I've heard that 6 feet apart while hanging out isn't social distancing, but I have no order from Bonnie Henry to back that up.
See, the CDC
But at
is
least you're
saying
honest
it is.
about it.
The
What?
CDC specifically says it specifically says stay 2 meters or 6 feet away from one another to help stop the spread. It's not saying you have to, it's just saying practicing this will help stop the spread.
I just
Yeah.
think, like, an example for me, you know, when they told us to drink, what was it, 6 glasses of water a day or 5 fruit and veg a day? So obviously, some people need more fruit than other people, and some people need to drink more water than other people. Everyone's diet is different. But they gave us a number, and I think that really helped that campaign take off because we could say 5 fruit and veg a day. Cool. I can make sure my kids eat that. Whereas if you say, well, make sure your kids eat fruit and veg, like, well, what does that mean? Quantify that. So I think that they need, even if it's not, this is one of those areas where I'm like, okay, maybe even if it's not completely scientific, it might help to put a number on it just to make it clearer and give it more clarity.
Yeah, no, especially in times like these where the stakes are so serious. If your kid doesn't get 5 servings of fruit and vegetables a day, no one's gonna fine you.
Mhm.
But if you break an order under the provincial, the emergency powers program, you could be fined and jailed. So
Yeah.
I think now is the time to err on the side of too much clarity.
Yeah. It's a good title.
Yes.
Really good headline. Any other comments, questions? Lucas, you have anything to say? You haven't said anything.
I have a comment.
Hello.
Yes, yes, Aaron.
I have a question.
Oh, wait, Eric had one, and then we'll get back to you, Curtis.
I just have a really big issue with them saying 6 feet when 7 feet is actually closer to 2 meters. than 6 feet.
That's
It
hilarious.
just pisses me off.
And people aren't paying attention to it. Like I was telling Jeff, I got into an altercation at the liquor store with someone the other day who like leaned over and was like, oh, just sorry, I just gotta grab this one thing. I'm like, this is a huge store. There's like, we're like only 2 people here. I was like, that's not 6 feet. And she was like, bitch. Anyways, she clearly thought that I was taking it too seriously. But she was an old person who could probably die. So I don't really know. Should I have called the cops on her? I don't know.
Let's read it.
That's illegal. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. It's
So why
assault.
now?
It's assault.
So
What if
Can
it's
you break
fake,
that
though?
down for us, Riley?
sorry. So deliberately infecting someone with this disease could be considered assault.
What if you're not literally affecting them?
Well, I mean, when someone pisses you off and you cough on them, what would you call that? Deliberate?
And then let's say you didn't know you had it, but you really had it, and then you give it them, and then they
That's
die.
questionable
Manslaughter.
if you don't know that you have it, but it's still pretty risky.
Serious business.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that right now. People are getting arrested for coughing on people intentionally. Like there's supermarket fights right now where people are fighting over stuff and people are coughing on it. They're like, you've heard of like pull to like intentionally get the person to back off, and
That's a good
people have been arrested for that. So
I should have known
don't
that
do it.
today. Superstores, heck.
So yeah, someone
But
else.
wasn't
had a
there was another question, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Curtis, you had a question?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, peace out, Cheryl. You had good input tonight because she was leaving.
Thanks, guys.
Bye,
Bye.
Cheryl.
Thing. Yeah, sorry.
So good to
Bye.
see you.
Everybody's planning things at the same time.
Miss
Okay.
You're all
you.
wonderful. Miss
Stay
you
safe.
for the future.
We miss you, bye. We miss your dessert too, but also
Oh, I
you.
miss your dessert so much.
My oven's broken right now, so you're in luck.
Oh
my
This
God.
is the time to get it fixed, alright?
Can we ever
You got till
start?
July.
We need to go fund me.
Yeah, we need to go find me for Cheryl.
Yeah. Alright, bye.
Do you think that if
So
they
I was just gonna ask, is your shirt dry yet from that shitty shotgun or?
No, it's so bad.
Yeah.
It was
Were
so
you
bad.
around for that, Curtis?
It's so embarrassing. Okay, so Kate made me laugh and I spit.
You know what? Can I
beer
make
all over
another
myself.
point here? That's 3 weeks in a row with a shit shotgun. I'm gonna do a sermon next week on how to shotgun properly.
Do you want to do the intro next week? That sounds great. On how to shotgun.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Oh yeah, can you actually do a sermon on that? Because I could really use the advice.
Absolutely. We'll go into the lore of FUBAR.
I didn't know that was law. This sounds intense. Go
No.
for it. I want you to do it.
Yeah, okay.
Jaden had something to say.
Oh yeah, I was just wondering, do you think that if they put a state of emergency up way sooner, that would actually like slow everything down?
I mean, I'm not a public health official.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know science at all. So, but that's what people are saying, that maybe, had they closed the border earlier, a lot of the early cases were international and from places that we didn't initially expect as outbreak areas like England. It was considered safe until like somewhat recently. So, I mean, based on what I've read stated by people who actually do know public health, probably, but we also don't want to force people not to come back to Canada whose home is here, so that's difficult.
So I think they wanted public buy-in, which is why they were
Mhm.
easing into it.
Yeah. Because I mean, well, they don't want to go arresting people in the streets. That's very bad for their ability to maintain government and maintain peace and order, and the ability to roll that out to start arresting people willy-nilly. So there's reason behind the easing, practically as well as like public safety.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, people just gotta. Then what was it? It was like a Thursday, like 3 weeks ago. It was a Thursday when everything changed. Do you remember that? I remember going about my life like normal, thinking I was going swimming that evening in the public pool. And then I was like, oh shit, like life just went like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that people had to be ready for that shift.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would have been like, I'm going to the pool, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Hard to
Yeah.
say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions?
No, I think
Oh, no,
I'm
Sam
gonna
says
be checking out now too, because I've got to
Okay.
be for work tomorrow.
You gotta get ready for sermon next week.
Nice to see you, Glenda.
Yeah, great to see you. And Riley, thank you so much. That was really
This is
good.
not legal information. This is legal information, not legal advice. I can clarify. I cannot give legal advice on this topic.
So, pretty soon it'll be.
I mean, even if I was called, you can't just give legal advice to people. Like
Speaking
this.
of
It's
which,
bad.
is your exam a go with 2 meter distancing?
No.
Oh,
But we'll
really?
talk about that later. Sam has a question related to the topic.
Well, it's like it was more of a comment about back to what you were saying with like your altercation in the liquor store. Alec witnessed our first sort of coronavirus altercation on the walk back from the pharmacy today. And it was just, I guess it was a couple crossing the street and then a solo man who I guess crossed too closely. And the woman yells around, like, she's like, keep your effing distance. And he says, F you. And she says, no, like, da, 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 da. And it's I don't know, it's actually scary to see how tense people get about the whole thing. And that I think that it stems from the fact that we don't really have all the information, and that definitions are a little bit vague. This leads to us conducting ourselves in ways that potentially endanger other people and make them very upset, and then we don't have a means of communicating properly to each other about boundaries. So I think that, I don't know, on like a personal note, we need to kind of, I don't know, reflect and think about how we're all kind of going through this together.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's.
I actually saw an
scary.
application leaving the grocery store. An old man and an Asian woman screaming at each other from across the street. Anyways, it was weird. I think he was racist, maybe. I don't know. I just got in my car and drove. Yeah, but he was like screaming at her, keep your distance, especially because you're Asian or something. She was like, take less walks, asshole. And then there was just like, I was just like, interesting.
What's interesting to me is that the big takeaway, I'm relieved that I'm not alone in being confused, that everyone seems to feel that way, but also that none of us seem all that concerned about, we'd actually be like, if the government gave us more clarity, we'd be like, yeah, if a state of emergency came with more clarity, then bring it on. We'd be fine with it.
I don't love it. I don't love being in a state of emergency, but probably necessary right now to avoid hundreds of thousands of deaths.
Yeah, where's Darby?
I know, where's Darby?
They're all flying by the seat of their pants. They don't know what they're.
Yeah, I think there is, or like in Halifax, there's a big uproar about that woman being fined $1,000 for walking in a public park. And then they were asking officials, like, okay, so what park is public? Like, we'll get back to you on that. They didn't even have a fucking clue when they started enforcing the rule, like what parks apply. So.
It just shows how they were not ready for any of this, right?
Yeah.
Experts and doctors and everyone have been telling them for years and years, you should have something in place for this.
I mean, that's what the new Emergency Measures Act in BC is. It's new and it's actually written with the pandemic in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the provisions are like designed.
Is
for,
it a response to this or a pre?
It was
before
before this, a couple years ago.
Oh.
They were like, pandemics are definitely coming.
Yeah.
So we're in a public health emergency where normally they didn't have the ability before then to differentiate between state of emergency and public state of emergency, health state of emergency. So BC is above other provinces to some extent when it comes to having prepared for this.
Quebec.
Quebec, yes.
Quebec. Jaden, you could do a sermon on how the lack of biodiversity might have been part of the cause of this.
I don't know if that necessarily makes sense, because like the lack of biodiversity would mean we need less humans and more of everything else, which is
Yeah.
yeah, it's true, but it's kind of like we need to get better birth control.
We need more diverse humans.
Yeah.
Or maybe someone
We
who's
need
like
more,
vegan or
genetic
vegetarian could do a talk about the dangers of eating meat, because like most of these public health epidemics and disasters have been started by
freaking
animals. Like
I mean, realistically, how much meat is there actually on a bat? Like, was it worth it?
It wasn't a bat, it was a pump pillow thing.
Okay.
It's also not just eating; it's getting.
Yeah.
It's the markets.
The topic of the biodiversity. One article I read was arguing that as we encroach more and more on nature, and like these animals are just kind of getting desperate, and we have more interactions with them, then we have more chance for this kind of thing to happen.
Yeah.
So as people live deeper and deeper.
And then you combine that with the fact that we're, getting to the world, crossing the world more and more, and becoming more interchanged with the world globalization. It just means that when humans get it, it crosses and passes for us really, really fast too.
We're gonna sign off.
Yeah, I think it's time to close this down.
Bye.
I think
So
so.
we're gonna close off too. Thanks so much. So good to see all of you.
Yeah, thank you.
Take safe.
Definitely Jack.
Thanks, Riley.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rob.
Bye, Jack.
Hey, we
Bye,
have to
Sarah.
do a round of applause.
Oh yeah, for Riley.
Come on,
Thank you.
because now we can get everyone to do it.
Jack and Sarah, you are so cute. Cuddling on the couch. Adorable.
All right, well, we're gonna go have
Bye.
dessert.
Yeah.
That Declan was cute, sitting on the couch with him.
Oh my gosh, so cute.
Get that.
And Jack was swooning for you for sure. Cousin swoon.
You guys are weird that way.
You two are so cute.